Hi, my name is Spencer, and this is Communicating New Frontier. It's probably a photo you've all seen sometime if you're from Vermont. I'm actually not sure who took this. Does anyone know who took this photograph? One of the better photographs I've seen of the response over the last few years, which is kind of what I care about and what we're going to be talking about today. So who am I? That's kind of the big question. If you don't know who I am, I don't work for any of the state agencies. I do live in Vermont, but I come from a different sector. I'm a cinematographer, journalist, producer, designer, communicator, drone pilot, EMT. I do a lot of different things. I've been working in media for about 15 years, mostly visual journalism and documentary storytelling. I'm nominated for 2 national Emmys. I used to work for a company called Vice. Is anyone familiar with Vice? Yeah, a couple. It's like a youth media brand. Unfortunately, went bankrupt, but they had their moment in the mid 2010s. I got my career started at Al Jazeera. I've worked for ABC News, New York Times, Washington Post. I've worked a lot of the time. I worked for Vice. I worked in over 20 countries, including some kind of places you might not want to go: Yemen, Syria, Iraq, Libya, South Sudan, and Ukraine, which is where I met my wife, who's Canadian, which is why I'm in Vermont, because I married a French Canadian. I was in Montreal, and I live here. So if you're wondering what I'm doing here, it's for love. I have a master's degree from the University of London in violence, conflict, and development. And my thesis there was kind of a precursor to my media work, and it focused on the relationship between international humanitarian agencies and the news media and kind of their external communications and affairs. So that's kind of where I'm coming at this from. Worked in media. I'm interested in emergency management and humanitarian affairs at more of an international level. And then recently I did the Vermont VEM's EMD 2024. So kind of dipping my toe into the emergency management field these days. Here's just some beautiful photos because I'm a visual driven person. This is me in Syria in 2016. We've got the dismantling of the Calais refugee camp in France in 2017. This is in Libya. And then this is one of the, not the first aid course I did, but it was a battlefield medical response training course I did a couple of years ago that was specifically targeted at journalists. Like I said, I like photos, and so there'll be a few dispersed in here just to kind of give you a breath of some of the things I've experienced during my career. This was during the Nepal earthquake in 2015. So why do I care about emergency management? You worked in journalism. What are you doing here? Why are you at this conference? Let me share another photo with you to kind of settle that. So this is on a rooftop in Yemen in the fall of 2015. That's me, and that's Ben Anderson, the correspondent I was working with at the time. And this is anti-aircraft fire being captured to basically repel Saudi-flown F-16 jets that were destroying critical infrastructure in the city at that time. So all super safe, right? But no, for real, I argue it was kind of safe. So we were a team of 3. Our friend Peter was not pictured in this photograph, but there were risk assessments made before we left, updated while we were there. Security protocols followed. We'd all gone through hostile environment first aid training before we left. And we had approval to be there from the Houthi-led government. And we had a local fixer managing our movements. So we mitigated risk. We went there. So it's like, yes, it's dangerous, but with all the planning and all the things that I think you all are all familiar with, really is included in this in terms of all the words you all know: prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. That thing, all that happens in terms of journalist security when they're operating in these types of environments. And what that kind of gives me appreciation for is what goes behind the scenes and on what you all do in your day-to-day jobs. It might not be as flashy as the rooftop on Yemen, but realistically, the same principles are being applied for risk management for that kind of thing, and then emergency management at a local level. And there's a lot of work that, excuse me, I'm stuttering a little bit. The public doesn't really see what goes on behind the scenes. In a sense, kind of emergency management and public safety officials kind of work in the shadows. And here's the picture for this Ukrainian Special Forces operative in a ABC in the shadows. But the point is that I think that work needs to be brought out of the shadows. Talked about more publicly. Sure, I've got my notes printed in a way that they flip, and then if I don't flip the sheet correctly, looking at the wrong thing. So, and I'm arguing we need to shine more light on the work that emergency management and public safety professionals do. Why? Is because we're operating a new frontier. And so that's my fancy way of saying, what is the new landscape that we're operating in? So I would argue that it's about 4 points. So extreme weather is increasing the frequency of disasters. I don't think this is news to anybody here, right? Here's some kind of headlines for dramatic effect. It's like, Time is saying why 100-year weather events are happening more than once every 100 years. The Guardian is saying NASA data reveals dramatic rise in intensity of weather events. You don't need to read the last one, but you get the idea. This is happening. Vermont got hit in 23. They got hit last year. It's going to continue to happen. Whether you acknowledge that climate change is a real thing, if you don't want to call it that, these events are continuing to happen in places where we don't necessarily think that they might happen. Zach had a point earlier, what's happening in Vermont that we may not think Vermont would be susceptible to, wildfires. The West has that figured out. They've got hotshot crews and they've got all this. But what happens when Vermont is facing those problems? I'd argue that trust in government is declining. And actually, I think what I'm going to say is it is declining. This is a Pew Research study from 2024. And it's basically saying, we're down here. And we've got Eisenhower up in the 70% approval rating. Johnson got a little bit higher. And now this is this current administration, but we're kind of down in the dumps. I think we're seeing that a lot lately, is that there's just not a lot of trust in public institutions anymore. And if there's not even any trust, there's kind of an effort to dismantle. So that's another big challenge. This is becoming more and more important, I think, for everyone. And some people say this wouldn't happen here. It's like, well, it might. Misinformation during disasters is dangerous. Just full stop. Period. Here's some. I'll kind of, in the interest of time, you can read these, but this is the topic. It's like LA had their problems earlier this year, and I think this is the real ticker here. It's like there was an incident in North Carolina that's extremely scary and dangerous to anyone who works in public safety and is a responder. But so why is that happening? Excuse me. Next point is traditional media is in decline. You argue maybe it's not declining, but it's definitely changed a lot. Used to be a couple major television stations, a couple newspapers, a lot of, who remembers the Burlington Free Press? Is that paper the same as it was 20 years ago? No. So that's kind of the point I'm making here. And social media is now the main source of news. This is according to a Reuters study that came out earlier this year. And who's this guy? Joe Rogan. Who is Joe Rogan? Does everyone know who Joe Rogan is?
He's a terrible comedian, but he's popular.
He's one of the most popular podcasters in the United States. And so I thought this was just too good of a screenshot to not use for this presentation. It's like, this is where people are getting their news from. Is a podcaster. And I'm not saying there's something wrong with that, but you need to contend that that is the new reality. And here's kind of an infographic from Reuters Institute saying, we've for the first time social media, and that's kind of a broad grouping. You've got Facebook, X, YouTube, they've surpassed television. And if you think about television news versus print journals, you might have some preconceived notions of which one's better in there. If print is down quite a bit as well. So what you're saying is there'll be more disasters to manage, less public trust to lean on, and more misinformation to fight while those news sources that we used to trust are in decline. That's a bit heavy, right? It's kind of scary, right? So as heavy as this guy's job here. This is from Gaza in 2015. I took all these photos. It's kind of it. So, what's at stake here? Give me 1 second to catch up on my bill. So I'm going to kind of lean on an old adage everyone's heard. If a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? So let me translate that to EM speak. If an agency has prevented, mitigated, prepared for, responded to, or assisted in the recovery from a disaster, and they don't talk about it, did it happen in the eyes of the public? Does anyone have an answer to that? No, I'm gonna say, I'm the doom and gloom here. I'm gonna say, no, they didn't know. So I want to play a little video here that was released last month from the International Association of Emergency Managers. And it should go. Let's try the clip here. Okay, I'm just gonna, in the interest of time, I'm just gonna show you here.
Just see the view. Well, my next.
So I had it set up in my, I'm a Mac guy, so I had it set in my Mac presentation to play within the presentation. This is where I finally feel like I'm actually, my mom said, oh, how do I fix this? How do I fix this? You know, parents can call your children to help you fix things. I'm like, Mom, I have no idea. We've surpassed that. You got to call your grandson now, because I don't. Thank you for that. All right. Good to hit play.
Maybe not. Good call.
Sorry.
Another click.
You folks can see a bunch of sessions today, but today, this session is the only one that folks online can see. So we want to make certain that they are having a good quality experience.
And thank you for everyone who's watching from online. I really appreciate it.
While we've got a moment, I'll also remind the folks online, I am monitoring the question and answer segment of this. So please, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. Whether you have questions for Spencer or the session itself, I will do my best to either flag down Spencer or answer them myself.
Ideally, that should do it.
I'm sorry, I think I didn't anticipate this.
No worries. Just hit anywhere to start.
All right.
Most people don't think about emergency managers. We understand why. We're not the ones driving ambulances or putting out the fires.
The link, we'll make sure you get the link.
Instead,
and we'll watch
we're
a little bit. We got
behind the
subtitles.
scenes,
I can tell
making
you
sure
what-
that those resources
it's
have
a wonderfully
everything they need
produced video
before they know they need it.
about what emergency managers
because we
do.
knew the risks and worked together to be ready. Every day, we unite the people who keep our communities thriving. The schools that care for your children,
The hospitals that heal our loved ones,
pose a question to
the
you.
utility providers that keep the lights on and the water
Why do we
flowing,
need this video?
the elected
Why did they
officials that
this?
make
Why did
decisions,
the International
and
Association
the first
of Emergency
responders who
Managers
protect us all.
basically a promo /
Together,
PR / hype video
we
for
plan.
emergency managers.
We train, we build relationships before the emergency happens. We write the plans no one hopes to need.
and we ask questions that make people uncomfortable. Because we know what happens when pressure is real and minutes
That
are
was going to be
short.
my next question.
We've
Because at the
seen
end
what
of
it
this
looks
video,
like
it
when
says,
communities aren't
no,
ready, when chaos takes over, when families look for help that isn't coming.
We didn't want
We do our job so that the next time the outcome
Did
is
anyone else know
different.
that August?
Because this job isn't just
We got
about
1, 2,
plans
3,
or systems or
4.
strategies.
It's about
I mean,
walking
it's
our
good to know,
communities through
but
their darkest
I
days
didn't-
and helping them find their way back.
So yes.
No matter how long that recovery takes.
If you look for us, we can be found at all levels of government.
Local, state, tribal, federal, U.S. territories, and internationally.
We're in your schools, colleges, and universities, in your nonprofits, utilities, and transit systems.
Okay, got it.
I found the link and dropped it in the chat here, and we can add it to our.
Okay,
line.
so what should I do here? Should I
So Brett, if you could.
just
Switch back to the presentation.
Okay, all right.
Somebody tells me different.
Might thank you. Can everyone can hear? You think?
I think so.
Can we hear? Okay. Okay. Sorry to interrupt you. Yes, what you said is true. So, you know, in a sense, it's like, why do we need this video is because
PDF, I think it's on that.
there we go. Thank you. There we go. All right. So I'm arguing, and this thing is way down. No one knows what you do because they don't talk enough about what you do. That's my argument to all of you, is that I have to admit I wasn't really that familiar with the emergency management field until a few years ago. It all makes sense when I see behind the structure and the materials that you guys produce and the education curriculum that surrounds emergency management. I'm like, oh yeah, of course, this makes totally much sense. But you don't talk about what you do enough. And so I would say people are very confused. And I wouldn't say that this is not applicable to outside of the emergency management field. I think it can apply to pretty much every public safety agency, except fire and police have a little bit easier time because you have NBC and ABC shows made about you on a yearly basis. You have rotating seasons. We know what doctors do because of ER and Chicago Med and the Chicago Fire and the Chicago PD. So until there's a NBC show about emergency managers, I'm going to argue that you don't talk enough about what you do. So if you don't tell your story, so this is my kind of argument here about this new frontier that we're in. Unspoken is invisible. Invisible is underfunded. Unfunded is unsupported. And unsupported is quite literally a disaster. So kind of one more time in a less poetic prose. If you don't talk about it, no one knows what you do. They don't know what you do. How do you maintain funding? If you can't maintain funding, your programs are not properly supported. And programs that are not properly supported, you risk failing your community when they need you most. So what's at stake here? I would argue everything. You don't tell your story, no one will, or worse, someone else will, and they'll get it wrong. Okay, so enough doom and gloom here. Move on to some positive things of how to move forward. So I'm going to argue that however big your agency is, or small it is, take control of the wheel and speak directly to your community where they are digitally and physically. And this is not a new concept. I mean, I know Mark's here in the front from BEM, who's the PIO for BEM, and Prescott's in the back. And I know the two of them have given presentations for BEM about public affairs information officer and public affairs issues and how to engage through social media. So this isn't a new concept. I'm not necessarily reinventing the wheel. But I'm saying the stakes are really high. Listen to what they've said, and I'm going to impart a little bit of wisdom as well, I hope. And these are kind of the caveats of how I think we should do this. I think you need to treat your agency as a brand. Whether it's Nike or Patagonia or North Face, or figure out who likes Patagonia here. Who knows who the CEO of Patagonia is? Okay, anyway, maybe that's Zach. You don't count. Or who's the CEO of Apple? Who knows who that is? Anyone? Cook. Tim Cook. Who did it used to be?
Steve Jobs.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. That is a brand that people understand and what they do. I would say Patagonia is a brand. I know who the CEO of Patagonia is because he's an environmentalist. They've built something that I am going to go buy, sadly. So treat your agency as a brand. I'm not saying you need a cult of personality CEO from these statements, but more of just like be cognizant of what your brand is. We're gonna dive more into this, but what's my brand? And I'm trying to set that up for you here. It's like, this is who I am. This is where I come from. This is how I represent myself visually. Make media that supports your mission. Develop a strategy and schedule for that media and that communication. And then, of course, like any professional or scientist or anything, if you monitor and evaluate how those things are. So treat your agency as a brand. I would argue that you need to kind of define what your agency is. What's your mission? What do you stand for? And what do you want your community to say when you're not? So I kind of want to, it's like, let's do a quick exercise. Who feels comfortable speaking, not necessarily on behalf of your agency, but I want anyone who represents an agency to answer these questions for me. So if you kind of want to think about that, and if anyone wants to volunteer, what's your mission and core values? Or like brainstorm a few words or phrases that you can represent your organization to the room here. So does anyone want to give me a stab at that? Or do I need to restate that? I think I kind of jumped. So we've got Vermont Fire, you work for Vermont Fire Academy. What does your agency represent? What do you want people to know, like, tagline or?
Yes, so the Vermont Fire Academy is really an educational institution.
Okay.
For firefighters. So that's the mission. Core values, I would say, are to train firefighters to the NFPA standards that we use in our training.
So you could say you're teaching the next generation.
And the current generation.
And the current generation.
Because things are always changing in fire service.
So that's the kind of exercise I'm trying to get you to kind of think about, and wherever you work. Because if you sat in a room with your colleagues or your director, or if you are the director, sorry, I've never met before. Who are we? Like, who's Vermont Fire Academy? Who's Vermont Hazmat? Who's VTTF1? You know what I mean? It's like, who are you as an agency? What do you do? And then through a group conversation, kind of distill that into something that you can kind of, which I'll show you later, use to move forward as a tagline. So, Apple, we talked about Apple and Tim Cook is like, who remembers the Think Different tagline from Apple? And what's Nike's tagline? Just do it. I'm saying, I don't want to get too fixated on brands, but it's just like this exercise of, we're public facing agencies, and you need to think about what you do to then best communicate your message to them. Let me just do my laundry list here. So, what's our mission and core values? What role do we play? What words should people associate with us? How do we want to be seen? And kind of the argument here is keep it simple, clear, and repeat. If it takes too long, people have short attention spans. Unfortunately, the emergency management video I wanted to show you that kind of failed. It was actually too long. It was like 3 minutes long. It really only needed to be about 1.5 minutes. Not only for my presentation, but if I check my cell phone while I'm watching something, that means you lost my attention. So I'm going to treat V. Adam, our wonderful host, as an example. I kind of did this exercise as a way, because I'm out from an outside perspective, to just use an agency that we all know in this room to kind of brainstorm. So it's like, what's VES? Well, I'd argue that they're experts, leaders, citizens. I think they're prepared. I think they're active, responsive, and on watch. They have the watch officer program. You kind of want to get what I'm sussing out here. It's like, okay, and this is, sorry, Mark, this is, I made this all up, you know what I mean? But, so it's just this idea of like,
It's true, okay, let's just be.
yeah, you guys are all these things, but you get an idea of what it looks like, and then it's in the color matches the color of the logo, and it's on the blue back. It's like, oh, this looks professional. And now let's put it with some really nice photos, and the on watch slogan, I kind of like that. And it's like, excuse the EMS tag here. I know there's lots of emergency management other than this type of stuff, but we're starting to look like a brand here and something that people believe in, that people trust. All of marketing and advertising is to get you to trust someone to purchase their product. That's all they want from you. Millions of dollars go into it. So we kind of need to understand a little bit of what I would say what they do on the side and steal that black magic and try to sell ourselves, in this case, to the public to make sure that, hey, yeah, we're actually good at what we do. We know what we're doing. And here's an example that's a little bit more real life. So this is Middlebury Regional EMS down in Middlebury. I'm an EMT with them, and I do their comms. So I'm in the process of taking who they were a year ago and trying to be like, what's the problem facing most public safety agencies? Don't have any money. You're very small. You can't hire a web designer to do all this, right? But you could still kind of go through the exercises to do what you can with the resources you have, and I'll kind of get to that later, to help at least raise yourself up. And what Middlebury is a nonprofit. They get a little bit of money from the town, and they do subscription service and they do donations. So they have to fundraise constantly, and that's where this stuff comes in. And while you might be a state agency and you don't have to fundraise, you need to hurry up.
You've got 20 minutes.
I'm gonna start. Sorry. You need to. The point I was trying to make was that when you're a nonprofit, you need to fundraise to survive. When you're a state agency, you have a budget allocation. But I would argue in this new frontier that we're in, that's not actually guaranteed it. And oftentimes you need more money than you're actually getting. So not only you're underfunded, but your agency might be closed tomorrow, given, I would say, the circumstances we're in nationally. It's like, is FEMA going to exist? Who knows? I don't know. We'll figure it out. So this is where I would say being a brand and communicating is important. For MREMs, it's super important because we need to survive. And if it doesn't survive, there is no paramedic level ambulance service. Just a quick kind of hit on this is like, we are an award-winning nonprofit paramedic level agency surveyed at Addison County. That's just, it's a little wordy, but that distills what they are. What they won an award, they're paramedic level service, and they serve more than just Middlebury. And they're more than just an ambulance service. They have a heavy rescue team. They did COVID vaccinations during the pandemic. They run dispatch for about 2 or 3 neighboring agencies, and they're community staffed and led, which I would argue is a very Vermont facing thing to say. It's like, we're part of the town, part of who you are. We're not a private corporation. We're the community. And then you add in some nice portrait photography of the executive deputy director. You can easily turn what might look like the most ragtag ambulance service in town, I would argue that they're not, to looking like a professional service that maybe be a career service that would rival a state agency from a major city. Let me just make sure I'm on track here. Okay. So when you start thinking your agency as a brand, you kind of need to understand that branding extends across everything that you touch. And I think would argue that you need to understand that design matters. This is Paul Rand. He's a pretty famous graphic designer. He designed all these logos. You've seen them before. UPS, ABC, IBM, like those stick with your head. You've probably seen those for 30 or 40 years. These were designable. Good design makes your agency look credible, coordinated, and professional. Poor design confuses people, undermines trust, and distracts from your message. In short, design speaks before you do. So make design your ambassador is what I would do. You want to harmonize branding across all platforms. Ensure everything looks professional, consistent. Use design to build trust and credibility. Make information clear, accessible, and easy to act on. And support your mission with visuals that reinforce, not distract. I'm going to pick on VEM. Sorry, VEM. This is VT Alert. What about this brochure makes you realize that VEM runs this program? Nothing. It's orange and green. VEM's colors are blue and yellow. So does this harmonize their branding across all platforms? Like, this is a really great, VT Alert's awesome. Like, it's a really amazing program. I'm signed up for it. And I really hate to pick on VM, but why not capitalize on the success of this program for your agency? They're not, if I had a VM, they're not connected, unfortunately. So, and maybe this is old and you're trying to get rid of them and there's new, so forgive me if I'm picking on you. But that's kind of what I'm talking about with, if you got, Middlebury had a logo on the truck at the Star of Life. On their jackets, they have, I'm still fighting this, they've got a different thing, and then they had their website look completely different. I was like, you have 3 different logos. How many logos does Apple have? 1. You need to get it together. So that's what I would argue with that. I kind of wanted to go back here, basically just say, perfect example. We already kind of covered this. All this just really, would you believe that this is a rural ambulance station in Vermont? That's the point. And so what I'm hoping, now that I'm helping with their fundraising, is like, okay, now we can go out and get more money to even professionalize further and hire another paramedic to add another truck in the evening. So all of this goes back to the mission, which is providing services. Just to kind of hammer some things on the head with the design stuff, keep branding consistent. Use clear professional layouts. Make visuals support the message. Prioritize clarity and accessibility. Don't mix random fonts, colors, or logos. Don't use cluttered, text-heavy slides. Don't publish low-quality graphics or images. And don't let the design distract from the message. So here's an example. This is the city of Boston's website. And I put them on the phone first because I need to actually remind myself that the phone is really how we're accessing things now these days. This is before you even scroll, Boston Emergency Management. We coordinate emergency management, emergency preparedness, and homeland security planning for the city of Boston. Whoa, I know exactly what they do immediately. No confusion about what they do as a state agency or as a city agency. And then their website, they've got some nice infographics. We got hot weather safety, tips for dealing with a flood, how to make an emergency kit. These are like hammering down on resources, very clearly communicating what they do as an agency. And here, here we have us, not all of us, but some of us. I mean, who's got the best logo here? That's kind of my fun thing. Who wants to take a vote? Who likes the logo? We got hands for the Vermont National Guard? No hands. Oh, he's got guard. We got VEM. I mean, I would say hazmat is like pretty awesome. Like, look at that stuff. A little scary. I'm not sure Grandma would appreciate that so much.
It's like you lost that. It's not that at that point.
Yeah. I think I'm going for fish and wildlife. I think that's the most suited. But it just makes you think of like how, these are on your trucks. These are on your business cards. These are on your polos. It's just, how are you representing yourself is really important. And also, and I'm going to pick on VTTF1, I couldn't find a clean logo of theirs to use in this presentation. Everyone else is like, I was able to find them in a press kit or something else to use it for the presentation. I had to go on and take out to make it transparent. And so, that's where you're like, how do we, maybe they someone from their agency should be in this course to say, hey, well, how do we make our team who's deploying to other states look like some real pros that they are? And this is a quote from Saul Bass, who is one of my favorite representatives. Design is thinking native initially. So, how many minutes do I got here?
You have 12 minutes.
Okay, I'm at a 4. So, who is your voice? Your subject matter experts. You could say it's your PIO. Is it your executive director? Is your hazard mitigation officer? It could be anybody, but realistically, you have a breadth of knowledge in your organization. Utilize them. Empower them to speak on behalf of the organization. Obviously, with some help and training, you don't want someone spitting out something, saying something they shouldn't be saying. But realistically, you've got some smart staff. So, if you're going to produce some content, let's say, floodplain mitigation is a big thing in Vermont, given everything that's going on. Why not have someone who's an expert in that host a video or host some sort of thing, or be the one prepared to and put up to talk about what that is to communicate the mission of the organization at the time. Your real voice is your subject matter experts. People who hold the knowledge, the credibility, can help your agency hold the trust of the public. I had so much to say here, and now I'm running out of time. So, line outreach with agency goals. If you're going to make Facebook posts, or you're going to do this, or you're going to have an interview, it's like, does it go back to what your mission is and make sure that it's supporting them? So it's not always the flashiest thing, but is your media supporting the actual mission goals of your various departments? And engage with your different departments that are outside of, say, public comms to be like, what are you trying to get out? Like, what kind of engagement do you need? We've got Emily, the engagement coordinator here. Is like, what kind of engagement do you need to make your mission better? And how can I support you as a communicator? Make media that supports your mission. So, sorry, I just had to. This is how you could look. We've got infographics. This is Instagram. Images work. Images are professional. Images communicate. And this kind of goes back to the design thing. We've got a new spring flood seminar coming up. Oh, I didn't know VTTF1, who's not VEM per se, but is a partner of VEM. And why not highlight them? Because they're part of the whole community, emergency management whole community. So engage with infographics. I think the possibilities are here. Promote and market preparedness campaigns, share key stats, broadcast emergency updates in eye-catching and easy to understand ways. Visuals cut through the clutter faster than text. They're easy to reproduce across platforms. The same thing could go on Facebook, could go on X, could go on Instagram, could go on TikTok. And then build a professional, consistent brand. This is a thing I wanted to highlight that Los Angeles Emergency Management. They hired a firm, an ad firm, to do this. So yes, it's fancy looking. We know that. Great communication. Prepared at ALA. Disasters happen. Pack a bag now. There's a backpack. So as a person on the street, I'm like, what do I put in the backpack? Well, I put the flashlight. I put my phone charger, some first aid, and some water. I don't even need to go anywhere. They're not even telling you to look anything up to get a packing list. They're just saying, like, be prepared, think about it. I think that's a great campaign. And here's some additional portions of that. I mean, and this on the right-hand side here, this card is a perfect example. And this came out before the fires. So I imagine that this campaign had quite a bit of impact. You know, if you want to get into video, this is a clip of me doing a kind of like this is the winter weather advisory for January 25th. There's a winter storm. You know, it's like if your kids are on social media or your grandchildren are on social media, they're watching influencer videos. That's the way to communicate with that generation. And I think you should at least try to communicate with that generation. But it also allows you to kind of bypass this old school, oh, we need to get a reporter from the station to do a statement and then bring them in. It's like, no, you don't. If you have enough following that you've built up on your social media platforms, you can broadcast emergency update immediately. You can kill misinformation or pause it right in its tracks by just communicating directly with the audience that you need to build. You can direct residents to resources, shelters, assistance points. Let's start moving faster. Short form video. You know, this is the great video from the American Red Cross, like how to build emergency preparedness kit. A little more involved, a little different audience. Still something you can do with your staff. Medium form videos. I would play this video, but it's from the Canadian Red Cross. It's more of a dispatch. We meet their team. We see the response to the floods in British Columbia. It's kind of cool. It's a little bit more of something you'd see on a news package produced by the agency. Here's Zach up there. He hosts a podcast. I'm not a huge podcasting person, but it's the idea that the sky is the limit for what you could do. If you have subject matter experts, leverage them to leverage the profile of the agency, you know? So I'm going to this is a quick case study with who I kind of thought has the best social media presence in the state, adjacent to public safety. And it's Vermont State Police. Beautiful photos. And I know why, because the recruiting officer is a kid who went to film school. And I looked them up. And he's doing some really great work for them, but they're using it across all of their platforms. In fact, the logo is clear. We have a great photograph. This is how they're using their social media. They've got a very robust YouTube, not a lot of followers. Facebook, 142,000 followers. The Instagram is 43. Everything looks professional, clean. And this is how they're using it. We've got instant alerts. We've got traffic alerts. We've got suspect alerts. And on this side, we've got infographics for safety campaigns. Speeding catches up with you. I would look this up. I don't have time to play it. They did a little short documentary about how their officers assisted in the rescue of a child who fell through the ice, along with an EMS. They sat them down. They interviewed them. They cut the body cam footage in. I mean, talk about a great public relations possibility to show what your agency does after the fact. I would argue for the flood responses in the last 2 years of Vermont, why am I not hearing these victories? Why am I not hearing these celebrations of what emergency management and public safety officers did during that time period? I would have an exercise here where you pitch me a story about, oh, well, what's a story we could tell about my agency? We'd go through it, but I had bad time management today, so we're going to skip that. But will they like, watch, and subscribe? I would argue that they will, because I watched a renovation video with no sound last night to relax of a French cottage from scratch to finish. And I was like, man, it's 7.5 million views. If it's compelling to someone, they will watch. This is going to be available online, so you can look at these, kind of develop a strategy. Trust and credibility in an audience is not built in a day. So it's like, yes, the potential of these tools are big if you have an audience. Can you do real-time updates in an emergency if you have 40,000 followers? Yes. If you don't, then it's, you're not there. So it's going to take a little while to build this. You should develop a strategy. That's important. This is a year in review video from the Office of Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs at the UN. And it kind of says, hey, we had a crazy year in 2019, and it's got all this footage and stuff in it, all the things they did. And could you have made that video? And this kind of goes back to my point about not having a lot of footage or photographs of the response to the floods in Vermont. Is like, you need to celebrate these victories because you need to use that material to advocate that you get more money allocated to you. And that's where I think we can learn a little bit from humanitarian agencies like Doctors Without Borders, Save the Children, is that they're constantly fundraising. So they have a very robust public information team. They have people going out there connecting with journalists, which is the story behind this photo. This is a host, Isabel Young. She works for CNN now. We're on a UN patrol in South Sudan. How did we get there? The UN got me on the top of that APC. They coordinated our transportation from Juba. We flew in planes, we were in a helicopter. Their press officer made this happen. And we shot a story and then it went on HBO and people watched it. So that's kind of why you can learn from strategies of adjacent industries, mostly because they don't have a budget, but I'd argue that your budget isn't guaranteed anymore given this new frontier that monitor and evaluate, this is the boring stuff. You do need to track it. If someone hired me tomorrow, which actually Middlebury just said, hey, we want to pay you to do comms part-time. Different from your EMT work. I was like, okay, cool. I have to track everything. I could be like, okay, I started on September 4th. We're 6 months out. This is the metrics. I've got us this many more followers. Our donations are up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I need to track it. So this is the end here. We're at the end. I would argue that we need a new breed of communicators. Agencies need multimedia communicators who understand emergency management, public safety, and storytelling. Because this is really what this is all about. And this role goes beyond standing at the podium during a crisis. This new communicator might not be that person. That person needs to be trusted and be with the agency for a while. But these people need to be proactive storytellers, educators, and advocates for preparedness. They kind of need to be a journalist on behalf of the agency to tell the agency stories. And this is through social media, video, podcasts, live streams. They'll deliver clear, timely information before, during, after emergencies. And the ultimate goal is to build trust, credibility, and understanding during blue skies, so their impact is greatest crisis comes. So it's like, well, what does all this matter? It's like, well, if you don't put out all these things, you won't have the audience. If you don't build the audience with this ancillary content that isn't related to a crisis, you won't have the projection power of the network, the social media, or whatever you're using in emailing list, when you really actually need to tell them what is closed, what's dangerous, what's, when it really counts, you won't have it. So you need to kind of build it. So you need, like I was saying, you need to build an audience today for better crisis communications tomorrow. This is kind of my appeal to everyone. Either become a storyteller, enable a storyteller, promote one, or hire one. Sorry for the speed round. If anyone has any quick questions, I'm happy to take them.
I'll just say a note in the chat, Jill Duty shared, it's a good reminder that posting regularly and increasing engagement will make it more likely that your followers will see the posts you need them to see.
Perfect. You said it better than I did. Zach?
So we have a Mark, right? We have
Yeah.
a full-time PIO that can do this. How does a agency that doesn't have a PIO?
Like a volunteer fire
Like a
department.
volunteer agency, yeah, or
I mean, I think I was talking to Prescott, who's Chief Heinsberg in the back, and who's the other kind of Vermont PIO wizard here. It's like, I don't know, do you find who's the youngest person you recruited as a volunteer? Who's a digital native? I mean, I think I understand, this is pie in the sky stuff here. It's like, I would say leverage the skills of the people you already know. Like I would say I'm on the cusp. I remember a time when the internet didn't exist. I'm very proud. But I'm a digital native. So, but there's kids who are younger than me. I might need to hire someone else, or at least get someone else to help me how to crack TikTok, because I'm not on TikTok. I don't know that. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, just to follow up on that is, what we do is we meet at the high schools and colleges to see if anybody would, they don't have to be a member of the organization.
Yeah.
But, it's like with high school students, they need to get, community hours and stuff. So part of that with the high schools with colleges or higher education.
Yeah, we're out of time, but here's a quick example. We get the Middlebury College pays through one of their programs for their students to work at MREMs as EMTs. or be trained. And I thought there's resources out there. There's ways to figure it out. I'd be happy to, this is my email. If you want to email me, I'm happy to talk about what problems you're having, what I could do to help, or,
Or I would suggest also your own kids are.
Yes.
My kids are,
Featured in a VM video, by the way.
yeah. Their work doesn't have to be the final product. You will still do quality control, but you have a kid or a nephew or a niece or someone who can do it.